Hi everyone, in this video we're going to learn how to analyze words in order to increase our vocabulary and also in order to be able to solve certain questions in certain exams without really knowing for sure what the meaning of the word is. So I'm going to teach you a couple of theoretical bases but also a couple of tricks of how to understand words even if we don't know them. We're going to start with the parts of a word. These are not the only parts of a word, but these are the most common parts of words. Remember, this is for English, but you can see how this also applies to other languages. So if you speak any other languages, if you have a different native language, you're gonna notice that this is also the case for that other language. Okay, so typically a word has these three parts: has a prefix, which goes before, has a root, which goes in the middle, and has a suffix that goes after the root. We're going to analyze each of these parts. We're going to start with the root, the middle part. The root is what we call the main meaning of the word. And roots, some roots, actually the majority of roots, can stand alone, meaning you can use them as full on words. Let's take the word act. The word act is already a word, meaning it's already a verb or it's already a noun, and you can just use it as part of a sentence. But this is also a root, which means when you combine them, you're going to create different words. I'm going to use this. We're going to go to the prefix. So when we combine it with a prefix, which is the particle that you put before the root, so we're going to take the word act, right? And we are going to combine it with a prefix. The prefix goes before the root or can go before another prefix, which means we can have two prefixes. It modifies the meaning and it cannot stand alone. Meaning, you don't have the word, let's say if the prefix is re, we don't have the word re, right? Unless you mean a musical note, but in that case, it's a different word. So, from the root act, if we add the prefix re, we have react, which is now a different word. It's different from act. It's modifying the meaning of the word act. If the prefix is "en," we have an act. And then we can combine those two prefixes to create re-in-act. And now we have a word, full-on word, with two separate prefixes and a root word. Now we're going to see the suffix. The suffix is the particle that we put at the end. We put it after the root. So let's take again the root act and let's add another particle. So the suffix goes after a root word or after another suffix. Yes, we can have two prefixes, we can have two suffixes. It can modify, it modifies the meaning. We're going to see how much it modifies the meaning in a moment. And it cannot stand alone. For example, we have or you're going to say, yeah, but or isn't it a like either or like the particle or, yeah, but it's a different or. This is not the same. We have shone, which is not really a word. We don't have shone, does not make cannot be used as a full word in a sentence, and can indicate word categories. So here we're going to stop a little because, again, if you're watching this video in order to do the vocabulary section or the vocabulary part of the questions in a verbal section in an exam, sometimes you don't really need to know what information the suffix is adding other than the category of the word. Meaning, when I say it modifies the meaning, sometimes, for example, act, so act is an act or to act, and then we have actor, you're gonna say, yeah, but I'm not really modifying the meaning, right? It's to act, like the person who acts, yes. But by adding or, this little piece of a suffix is now adding the information that we're talking about now, the person who acts, and we're no longer talking about, let's say, the verb to act. We're talking about the noun. This is an actor, and this can no longer be used as a verb. So this new word actor can be used as a noun. And same way we can have action. So shon will be the suffix. In this case, again, it will indicate that we're talking about a noun. And maybe this is enough for the type of question that you're trying to solve. And in life, maybe it's also enough for you to understand the word. Finally, we can combine more than one suffix. So we have act, the root act, plus shun, plus let, and we have actionless. So we have a new word that is one root and two suffixes. From this, we can have different combinations. We can have a word that is only a root, like arm, joy, or form. We can have a word that is a prefix plus a root, like disarm, enjoy, reform. Remember, we can have more than one prefix. We can have two prefixes and then the root. And then we can have a root plus a suffix. We have army, joyful, formulate. And we can also have it in on both sides. We have prefix, root, and suffix. Like these are main, enjoyable, or reformulate. Remember, any of these combinations are possible. And the idea is that you are aware of these possibilities. So when you are looking at a word that you don't know, you have never seen before, you can take it down into little parts that you may recognize. Moving on. This is a list of common prefixes. On the description of the video, there's a link where I put this material. You can download this material. You can have this on your own. My advice is don't memorize the prefixes. This is still going to be a list of the most common ones in the English language. You're going to recognize these also apply to other languages, but don't memorize them. I want you to try to learn them as you go, meaning the more words you learn, the more you're gonna encounter that certain prefixes repeat, or you're going to encounter that, oh, this prefix is very common in the vocabulary that I'm supposed to study for this specific exam. So you're gonna start memorizing them as you go. Also, as I have been saying, the prefixes, suffix, root form also exist in other languages. So whatever other language you speak, you read, or you just can understand, even barely, use it. Try to find the same prefixes, the same suffixes, even the same roots in those other languages. That's probably going to make you expand your knowledge of the words in English. And finally, practice analyzing words in your daily life, which means don't just think of the complicated words that come around in the exam. Don't think of just, I don't know, like transatlantic, that's an SAT or a GMAT or a GRE word. No, use words from your daily life, like the word daily, right? We have day and we have li. Oh, so li is the suffix for adverb, so that's the daily life. Again, try to practice this as much as you can. Try to incorporate it into your common daily routine. Okay, and finally we have the common quantity prefixes. Another thing that I haven't put here is that a lot of these prefixes come from Latin. We have prefixes that come from Latin, we have prefixes that come from Greek, but the majority of them come from Latin. So if you speak any other Romance language, any European language, you're gonna probably find that the words in that other language that you speak are pretty similar, or at least use the same prefixes. Again, this is a list of common suffixes, and well, this is just a list of common suffixes, and here this is a list of common suffixes per type of word, per category of word. So, for example, if a word is a noun, or how can you tell that a word is a noun? Well, it will typically use one of these suffixes. Also, if you have a root, and then you add one of these suffixes to that root, so that root may have been a verb originally, but when you add these suffixes, now you turn it into a noun. Same thing happens when you have an adjective. Same thing happens when you have a verb suffixes. Same thing happens when you have an adverb. Now, a very important note here is that in English language, we have a lot of new words, a lot of, let's say, contemporary 21st century, especially, from internet-based, computer-based, technology-based new words that are officially in the English language, like formally in the English language, and you may find some of those on the exam that you're taking. So as long as you're keeping up with the quote unquote new words, you will be fine. Okay, so don't worry too much about like the over analysis of the new words. You can actually use the new words to analyze them and understand in hindsight old words. Okay, let's practice. I'm gonna just give you a couple of exercises. I want you to pause the video here, try to analyze this word, try to analyze what is the prefix, what is the suffix, what is the root. And after doing that, try to get what is the meaning of the word as a whole. I want you to pause the video for as long as you need, but try not to be like 5 minutes. Try to pause it like maximum 1 minute, and I'm going to give you the answer. Okay, so this is the answer. We have interminable, right? Interminable. So we have in, which is a prefix for not or just the opposite of something. Termin, which is to stop, and able, which is the suffix for adjective. So this is an adjective that means non-stop. So the actual meaning will be not able to stop or just something that doesn't stop. We're gonna go to the second one, to this one, pause the video, analyze, and I'll give you the answer. Okay, retrospect, we have retro and spect, and we have retro, which is the prefix for back, and spect, which is the root for to look, and then together will be to look back. This has two meanings. It can mean to literally look back, right? But it also means to look back in your mind, like in your memory, to think back, to look back in time, or to think back at what happened before. Here I have a comment about this. Sometimes when we analyze the words using this method, you're gonna get like the literal meaning retro back, spect to look back, as in physically to look back, right? The thing is, like, this may have been the origin of the word, yes, but may not be the meaning that is being or is the most common meaning right now, which means, again, in the exam, you don't have the time, okay? You don't have the time, you don't have resources to Google the things or to talk to your friends. So if by the bare meaning it means to look back, and you can stretch it a bit for the word back to mean back in time, back in a physical sense, back in a spatial sense, or whatever, you stick to that. You stick to how much you can stretch the meaning. And this is a bit of a process of elimination, which means maybe the word that you want in the blank or in the highlighted or the underline or the bold face word does not really mean to look back. Maybe it means to reflect on. Okay. So since the other words probably mean something completely different, you're going to stick to the word that if you stretch it a bit, it may mean to look back in another way that is not literal and physical. All I'm saying is that this analysis that we're doing may not lead to the 100% sure thing that is going to be the answer, but it definitely is going to help you eliminate and stay with the alternatives that are most likely to be true. Okay, I'm going to do one more. Circumspect, pause the video, analyze it. Okay, we're gonna see it. So we have circum, which means around, like a circle, right? And we have spect, like we did it before, so which means to look. So we have to look around. This is another one of those cases that it literally means to look around. Yes, like you look like on a 360 degree, you do a full turn or whatever. But nowadays, this means, yes, it means to look around, but it also means to be cautious. As in, usually say that somebody is a circumspect or that person is circumspect if that person is cautious or wary of the things that are going on. Or quiet, even. Usually, we also use circumspect for a person who's not yapping, who's just quietly going around in life, as in, like, keeping to themselves. Okay, we're gonna do one more. Omniscient. If you're religious or Catholic or Christian, you may know this word. You may know it, but may not know how to analyze it. So still pause the video and analyze it. Okay, so we have omniscient, so we have omni or omni, which means all. Science, remember to know, like science, and ent, which is well. This is a part of the noun suffix. Also, I wanted to take a break here to explain something again. You may know this word, right? Again, if you are raised Christian or Catholic or any other religion that implies having a God, an omniscient God, you may have heard this word. You may not know what it means, but you may have been throwing it around, or you may have heard it, or may have read it. So there are two things to apply here. One, be careful, because sometimes we're very familiar with words, and that doesn't mean that we know them. It just means that we're familiar with them. Like we heard them, we read them, right? But that doesn't mean like we can actually explain what they mean. And second, okay, let's say this is the exam, right? I don't know what omni means, and I don't know what this means, but sounds like science, like scientist. Okay, so use this. You don't really have to use all the parts. Let's say again, this is for the exam. For life, yes, try to always figure out the whole thing. But for the exam, if you figure out the prefix, good, use it. If you figure out the root, good, use it. You don't have to expect to understand both the prefix and the suffix, or even just the prefix, every single root, and every single suffix before like coming out with your own meaning. If you only understand the root, use that meaning. Run with it. Use it in order to eliminate. Because again, if this is for an exam and not for life, your goal is just to get the right answer, whether you finally understood the word or not. Now, if you're learning for life, if you came up to this video just trying to improve your vocabulary, then yeah, take a step further. Like actually try to understand everything. If this is just to increase your vocabulary as a whole for life, or even just because for fun, when it's just then yeah, always analyze it. But again, if this is for an exam, just run with what you have. Don't wait for everything. Okay, now, I'm going to show you some more practices. You can pause the video. My advice for you is to pause the video because I'm not going to pause long enough for you to practice. And at the end of this, I'm going to show you the answers, right? So this is the first list. Pause the video, analyze them, write them down. Don't just do it in your head. You're going to forget. Write down the analysis on a notebook, on a piece of paper. Just write the things down so you can check. Pause the video. Like this is the second group. Again, analyze the words, write them down. Don't spend too much time. Don't just, if you know, you know. If you don't know, you don't know. If you can copy it. If you can color code it, color code it. Okay, the third group, pause the video, analyze the words. I'm gonna move it on, and now we're gonna give you the solutions. Again, you can pause the video so you can check the solutions on your own. This is another list. Pause the video. Pause the video to check. 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 We have finished here. Now, things to keep in mind now that you're here. So, first thing, practice analyzing words in your everyday life. Again, don't wait for the big words, like the big school words, the sciencey, the very highbrow words. No, do it in your everyday life, like every day, every day. This one is pretty obvious, I know, right? But trust me, it does work like that. Second, if you are not a native English speaker, then use your native language, especially if it's a Romance language, like an every European language. Actually, pretty much, um any language that's a Romance language are languages that come from Latin, or they have they, if it's a Romance language, they come from Latin, but any European language may have a Latin influence, so you can use that. Okay, and use any other language, even if you're still not fluent. Some people will say, yeah, and I took, like, I don't know, I took a year of Portuguese, but I'm really fluent in Portuguese. Doesn't really matter. If it sounds like something in Portuguese, if it sounds like something in Italian, if it sounds like something in French, use it. It's probably the same. Also, to keep in mind, you want to learn words by synonyms and antonyms. So when you are analyzing these words and you're learning new words, try to learn by synonyms and antonyms. This is in general, not just for the word analysis thing. Try not to learn words by full by full definitions, because the brain doesn't really care that much about definitions. And actually, after you have learned a word by synonyms and antonyms, try to make up a sentence that rings true for you, or at least that it's important for you. Like, don't copy the example, the sentence that is being used on the Wikipedia page or the dictionary page. Try to make an example for you, like about your mom, your dad, your brother, your sister, your friends, your dog, your cat, your rat. Just try to use a context that is important to you, so your brain will cheerfully remember it. Also, remember, you can choose an alternative slightly based on the prefix. This is if you're taking one of these exams. If you're looking for a word that is, I don't know, a negative thing, just find a prefix that has a negative connotation. You can totally do that, also based on the root. And something to keep in mind, even if you learn a lot of words, there will still be words that you don't know. So don't feel bad every time you encounter a word that you don't know. don't worry, okay? Especially if you don't need it. If you don't need it, definitely don't worry. But also don't feel like don't feel like, oh, there are so many words that I don't know if I will be able to make, whatever exam you're taking, without these words. Don't worry, there will always be words that you don't know. So again, if this is for exam, just focus on understanding how to solve the specific questions for the specific exam. I keep saying this because even though most exams that have a vocabulary section have, let's say, I don't know, 80% of things in common, that extra 20% makes a difference. So I don't really want to give a strategy for that. You can watch my other videos for that, for specific strategies for specific exams. Okay, so extra materials, again, in the description of this video I have this PDF. Here you can click on this material. You can also just Google the thing, by the way. This is a list of English prefixes, a list of English suffixes, and English words that come from Latin. Especially remember, if you speak a Romance language, if you speak Spanish, Portuguese, Italian, French, remember that words that may be obvious or very common in your native language are hybrid words in English, because English does not directly come from Latin. So some words that are considered hard for the English vocabulary, for the English exam, whatever exam you're taking, may not be considered hard in your own native language. And also, the more you learn words in whatever language, other language you speak, the more or you're gonna notice how they resemble some other words in English. Okay, finally, same thing. I'm gonna recommend myself as a tutor. Remember, you can leave your comments, questions in the on the comments on YouTube. You can also just send me an email or a text. You can go to my website and leave a message there. And that's pretty much it. And see you on the next video. Bye.